Welcoming to Yang Speaks, a man after my own heart, entrepreneur, congressional candidate in Florida's 3rd district, which is, I want to say, Gainesville, Adam Christensen. Welcome, Adam.
Hey, how are you?
Adam, I love your story because you are a true startup guy. You started a company, moved across the country for it, and then you looked up at your congressional representatives and were like, you know what? Like, I think I might be able to offer something and contribute. And then you shocked expectations. You became the Democratic nominee. I think you may be the youngest congressional candidate in the country right now. Is that right?
At least Democratic, yeah. Although I turned 27 a couple days ago, so I'm gonna have to check again. Not sure at this point.
Well, you're up there in terms of youthful youthful candidates, and your opponent is someone who I think she worked for the former rep who kind of made a name for himself by being a jackass essentially. Like he was like
Yep.
it's funny how these lines intersect, but you can go ahead and share the story about I guess both the incumbent right now who's getting out of the way and then your opponent.
Yeah, so Ted Yoho kind of gave us a gift. He actually put this race on the map. He's the one that verbally assaulted AOC on the Capitol steps. He's also one of the 4 people who voted against making lynching a federal crime. And he also didn't like the Survivors Bill of Rights, the ERA, didn't think what was it? The Voting Rights Act was constitutional. That's something that he didn't think. So it was like all of these things he'd been doing for years, but nobody really saw exactly who he was until the AOC incident. At which point, people started to even realize that Gainesville existed, and so that was, that was really where our campaign really it was a jumping off point. Honestly, it was a bunch of people that kind of realized that this is the guy who's been here for a long time, and we basically need to tear down his infrastructure with progressive ideas and preferably with young people, and it really just shot off from there.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about the genesis of your campaign. I'm sure when you were first talking about running, people were like, "What?" Or thought that that was a lot to bite off. But you ended up inspiring a lot of young people in a college town, getting a ton of energy, and then growing from there. Can you tell us about how you got started and really why you decided to get into this race?
Yeah. One of the biggest things for me, I mean, I always enjoyed politics. Like, I just enjoyed it. And like, I always thought, someday maybe I might try to run for something, but I never really had any actual idea about it. And then, tried to grow past the startup stage where effectively you get so big and at a certain point you have to start offering benefits to be able to keep growing. And a lot of startups just cannot get over that hurdle. And so that was one of the main reasons that caused me to jump into this was, I had 2 companies and they both got to that hurdle. And I saw a bunch of other small ones that got to that hurdle and they either sold to bigger people or they just, petered out or they tried to get out of it. And so for me, that's when I kind of realized, that, somebody needed to change that. And at the same time, I had looked and saw that Ted Yoho was going to retire. And so I looked and saw who the Democratic people were that were running. And I wasn't really impressed. And I was kind of complaining, and somebody was like, well, you know what? You don't really get to complain if you're not going to do something about it. And so my response to that was, okay, well, how would you get on the ballot? And so then I took the puppy out. We went out and tried to get as many petitions as we could in the farmer's market. And within about 2 weeks, we had almost 600 different petitions that have been signed. And then I basically started talking to people. And I sat down at a coffee shop with the person who became my campaign manager. His name's Anton Kernahan. He just turned 21. He was an environmental activist. And I talked to him. Basically, I was like, look, like, this is what I care about. And he was like, this is what I care about. And I was like, well, what if we give both of those things a bigger platform and we actually try to run and do something here? And he's like, you know what? That's great. And so it started with one person. And then within the next couple of days, we had about 4. And then the next week we had 10. And then eventually got up to 50. We're all under the age of 23. And basically we were running because we believed that things could actually change and get better, and nobody else was going to do it. And so we had to. And that's really what we did and what we've continued to do. And I don't know, that we've inspired people. I just know that we're doing what we believe is right and what we believe somebody needs to do. And we're seeing a lot of support of people that believe exactly what we believe and have just been waiting for somebody to come out and say it because they believed it for so long, but nobody has been willing to speak truth to power and actually come out and say what they believe and fight for it. And so that's kind of what's propelled us so far, I think.
Yeah, it's a very relatable story on several levels. I agree with you that startups have been hindered by the fact that we've just put so much on small businesses in terms of benefits, healthcare. Like I mean, I've run companies, and it's true when you make that transition where you are providing full on benefits to folks and people are making multi-year commitments to you. It's a lot of pressure as a company. And right now we made it so that that pressure breaks a lot of startups, to your point. What were the startups you were involved with? I remember the one, but I want you to speak to it a little bit so people get a sense of what brought you here.
Yeah, so the very first one that I started right out of college, I had about $3,000 in my pocket that I had made from odd jobs working in the summer on the drive, and it was catching international suppliers trying to screw over family-owned businesses and American businesses here that were selling natural products. The second company really focused on kind of the hemp and CBD industries, which are booming, brand new industries but have zero regulation. Nobody's actually looking out for other people or trying to hold others accountable. And so that was really what I was doing. And I kind of feel like it's a good transition, especially to politics, because that's what congressional representatives are supposed to do. They are supposed to hold people who try to take advantage of those in their community accountable and stop them.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on, unfortunately, which brings us to your opponent, who has like this backstory that I confess to being confused by. So it's like, okay, I get Ted Yoho, he's been there for a long time, he's like a rich businessman lawyer type, but your opponent is not Ted. Your opponent is his former employee of some kind who worked in like a communications capacity. Is that right? It's a little fuzzy for me.
Well, here's the thing is it's very fuzzy because it keeps changing like every other day. So here's what we know. We went and looked into this person because, in what I do is I essentially, try to look through marketing and BS and try to see what is real, what is not, and be able to actually know. And so we started looking into this person. And the very first thing, so the first commercial I ever saw her was she goes, "I grew up on a cattle ranch in Colorado and Obama bankrupted me and I was homeless." And I was like, that's an incredible story. I wonder if any part
literally
of it is
incredible, like literally unbelievable.
That's amazing. Like I don't know who you are, but like you got me. Like I'm ready for this story. Like I want to know about it. And so I looked into it and I couldn't find the cattle ranch. Like the first most simple thing is I grew up on a cattle ranch and I couldn't find it anywhere. No property records, nothing. And so like we spent weeks looking for this thing. And then we finally threw it out on Twitter and we're like, all right, internet, go find this because we can't find it. And whatever you find, use the hashtag where's the cattle ranch and tell us what you find. And they found so many things, but they couldn't find the cattle ranch. It was insane. And so we eventually found a piece of land that was apparently bought by her mom at one point, but there were no buildings on it. They never lived there. So it was not a cattle ranch. On top of that, they took 7 different loans out over 12 years. They had $350,000 in debt, and eventually they were foreclosed on. But it was not because of Obama. It was because she went on a 108-day cruise that cost 30 grand across the world, and she literally caused her family to lose their piece of land. On top of that, it was right after she graduated from college. And so she literally transitioned out of college housing to an apartment/hotel and then joined Ted Yoho's staff. But she said that because she had lived in a hotel, she was, quote, homeless. And she said the hotel was so bad that she called it, quote, a crack house. So literally everything about her was completely fake. And this was before she even got into politics. And so right at that moment, we knew that there had to be things that had happened. And because this is not a story that most people have ever experienced or seen. And so it was incredible for us. She was his chief of staff. She was 24 years old. And about a year in, she was fired by Ted Yoho, but he refused to say why. And she was demoted and shipped back to Gainesville, Florida. When she got there, the entire staff in Washington was purged. And she set up a consulting firm while still on his payroll and started receiving more money while doing this than she was as a chief of staff for a sitting congressional official. And also her husband's lawn mowing company started to receive money as well. And he still refuses to endorse her. So we realized something very shady and sketchy was going on. And nobody still knew what the incident was that led to her being fired. And so this is who we're running against, somebody who's made up their entire life story, everything about themselves. And it's insane. And nobody has ever looked into it.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of local journalism has withered and died. And so not that many people are digging in.
All the source documents, they have it. They've just refused to actually look into it.
Yeah, it's a tough time for congressional candidates who are trying to get a spotlight. I've seen this with some of the Humanity Forward candidates, including you. And this is a Republican-leaning district that seems like it could flip. It's interesting because Ted's been there for a while. Your opponent, I think many people just assume that she'd just sort of sleepwalk into the seat. Even though as soon as you start scrutinizing it at any degree, you're like, wait a minute, this person is like, why is this person like the prohibitive favorite, the Republican nominee to be a member of Congress? And you are, to me, like right on time. Like if you can get the support and visibility you need, you would be such a fun, transformative figure in Congress.
We would have fun. It would be so much fun.
Well, we see we see eye to eye on many issues. One of the things that I'm passionate about right now is championing cash relief during this pandemic and universal basic income longer term. But first things first, just cash relief. Like, where are you on trying to get money into the hands of people after we get you into Congress, January 2021?
Well, I think I've tweeted about this quite a few times, but my first response is basically any stimulus package that anybody wants to put out, if it doesn't have cash relief at like $1,000 or $2,000 for people, that it should be dead on arrival. It shouldn't even be taken seriously. And it should honestly be retroactive based on how much we should have been getting for the last 7-8 months. And so for me, unless it has those provisions, I'm sorry, but there is literally no reason to vote for it.
Well, hopefully we can get some energy and resources your direction to save us from your opponent as member of Congress. And you as member of Congress would be a blast. Where would people go to get behind you, to support you, to find out more about you and your campaign?
The biggest place, obviously, is our website, which would be forthemany.notjustme.com. And that would be the best place. Our Twitter and social media is AC for Congress 2020. We also have an email list and different things, but we just dropped a jobs plan that would essentially bring about 9,000 jobs to our district. And it takes all of our big ideas like high-speed rail and broadband internet and all of these different like small business incubators and actually makes it for our area. Because we have these big ideas, but if we're not able to actually create a vision that people can get behind and actually see it in their daily lives, then we're not doing anything that's, going to be actually substantial. And so that was a big thing for us is we created this. We even created a map where you could scroll in and see different locations and different things that would be happening in our district if we were to get elected to office. And so for me, that's what I'm focused on. I'm not focused on a 24-hour news cycle, like what's the most ridiculous thing that you can make up and like try to get people to care about. It's about people and it's about what we can actually accomplish and, make our lives better because that's what matters.
Let's make our lives better. Amen, Adam. Amen. So pumped for your race. So pumped for you to become the newest member of Congress out of Florida's 3rd District. Adam, thank you for taking on this challenge. Thank you for running. It's been a joy to support you in your campaign. Let's just keep fighting. And the gap between you and your opponent is very, very wide.
It's fun. We've had a lot of, honestly, most people don't have fun when they run congressional campaigns. Like they get to a point and they're just, it's just not fun anymore. And we have had so much fun. Literally the last 2 days, because my birthday was 2 days ago, literally the last 2 days have just been phenomenal. And like, I have not stopped laughing pretty much for any point of them. And it's just, you got to have fun. You got to love what you're doing and you have to actually care about people. And if you're grounded in that, you're going to do okay.
We'll be with you every step of the way, Adam. Really excited for you and your race.
Thank you so much.